Hey, I'm Adam Pierno, and I wanted to share some ideas with you about breaking through writer's block. Uh, I'm going to do that by telling you how I am working through writer's block right now by creating this presentation that you are watching. For no particular reason at all, nothing's going on in the world. Since about early March, I've just had this crippling writer's block, and I saw the opportunity to give myself a goal that would drive creation and drive output and get my brain working, and then documenting how I'm working through that into this presentation that I thought might be useful for you now or sometime in the future if you're dealing with something like this or know someone who is. So I wanted to call this presentation Breaking Through and make it this masculine image of smashing the boundary, breaking through the prison wall with a sledgehammer, but that is ridiculous. It is much more like somebody smuggling a file in with a cake. And you pull that file out, you saw your way out, an inch an hour, 2 feet a day, you're barely getting through that wall, coping, figuring out ways to make incremental progress every day. I started tracking the excuses I was making to myself. And I thought that might be helpful. So first one, if you look up at the cursor here, I don't know where to start. Well, of course you don't know where to start. I think there's this feeling that you have to, before you're going to write, you have to have all the answers figured out. That's what you forget is that's what the writing process is. So the answer is don't worry about where to start, just start. Start at the end, if that helps you. Think about the climactic thing you're building up to. Start in the middle. You have a scene in mind, or you have a key point that you want to build around, or you have something you want to react to. Get some stimulus that you can write about in response to something to just get your brain working. Just the key is don't worry about where to start. Just start. The other excuse I make sometimes is, isn't there something more important I should be doing? Is writing this thing the most important thing I should be doing right now? Maybe not. Maybe helping your kids with a project is more important at that time, or maybe focusing on your work, like I should probably be doing, is more important. But at some point, when are you going to focus on this? When is the right time? When does this become prioritized enough? So I think you just have to decide for yourself. Is there something more important? Yeah, and you just have to cope with that and move through it. I'm still going to write anyway because I want to, I need to, so it's helpful for me. It will lead to more productivity and other things I'm trying to do. Another excuse I make, how can I focus on this right now? How can I be expected to focus on this thing given everything that is blasting us? The key is to start focusing and use it as a distraction that will help clarify for you the way you are processing information that's coming in. Yeah, there's a lot of important stuff happening, a lot of news, a lot of doom scrolling, a lot of things that seem urgent and important. But by giving those our attention, we're creating a hierarchy that really doesn't help us. It's definitely not helping us communicate better. It's definitely not helping us organize our own thinking. So I think the key is by focusing on this thing that you're trying to write right now, you're taking a little bit of control back and improving your own focus and controlling what you're focusing on, which is key in these crazy times. The other excuse that I've made to myself is this had better be good. Very early in this shelter in place, this quarantine, whatever you call it, isolation, there were many people posting on my Twitter feed that Shakespeare wrote King Lear during a similar situation. Well, am I going to write King Lear? No. Are the things that I'm putting out as good as King Lear or Shakespeare's work? Debatably. No, they're certainly not even debatably. They are not. But I don't have to, though I can aspire to write something great, it doesn't mean I should not write anything at all, because I can't be expected to write King Lear or Stephen King. I have something that I want to communicate, I want to figure out. It's going to help me think what will be, this had better be good as an excuse, is you need to reframe good. Maybe good for me to get my thoughts in order. Good for the people who read it, good for people around me who see that I'm bottled up and blocked, or see that I have a point that I'm trying to make, but I can't quite figure out how to get it out there. All these excuses really boil down to fear. And right now, the way writing can help you cope with fear, the fear of getting started, the fear of putting something incomplete out there, the fear of not being great, is to approach with some stoicism. I'm not a stoicism purist, but the idea of I can only control what I control. I control what I contribute. I control how my brain is adding to the solution. I can control the news I'm posting or the news I'm consuming or not consuming. Let's take a break from just the endless thumbing, which I am guilty of as much as anybody. Dealing with that fear and approaching it in a way that says, okay, this is the part I'm going to own. And I'm going to write this because I am brave enough to sit down and start writing and face down this blank page and this blinking cursor, which is haunting me. And it's haunted all of us at some point in time. So it really comes down to two avenues of approach to solving this, to solving writer's block for me, and kind of two sides to each of those avenues. Every street has two ways, most of them, unless you live in New York or London. Routine. When I was I'm a person who has been called a prolific writer. I could sit down and write 1,500 words anytime I wanted. But it was due to, as I was thinking through this and starting to work on this presentation, it was due to being in a set routine, very tight, where I knew weekdays were going to be the same. I had a set routine that was very predictable to me and allowed my brain to be free. I knew that I would wake up, I would run or work out, I would make breakfast for my kids, take them to school, get to work, step by step, and do all the beats of the day, and it allowed my brain to wander. And now I've kind of inherited a routine. I'm in a routine. It's a different routine, but it is not that. My brain is not wandering. I don't even want my brain to wander, and you probably don't either. So the two avenues are, you can either return to that routine, figure out how to get to that routine that gives your brain the peace to imagine and wander. Or the other side of that is reset your routine. Something's not working. Something's not working about the routine I'm in. Start working out again. Start finding ways to do that. Start finding ways to get back to the routine I was in and making some changes that I think are going to be more productive, which is what I did to start this. I started making sure that I am getting my blood pumping, whether that's taking the dog for a walk or I'm just getting out there and being physical in some way. And you have to find what works for you. Go back and think about when I was really productive before this block, what was working, what isn't working. The other avenue to explore is self-discipline. And in thinking this over as part of this presentation, what I realized was the times when I'd been most productive and happiest in my life, I was either extremely disciplined, training for a marathon, or completely no discipline. Life of Ryan, just going crazy. This was mostly before I had kids, right? Those are the times when I was most happy and most productive, coincidentally. And those things for me align. They don't align for everybody. But when I'm in that place where everything is clicking in my life, output is clicking. I'm able to formulate ideas very quickly. I'm able to generate a lot of content very quickly. I'm able to communicate much more clearly than when I'm in a block, when I'm unhappy, when I'm stuck. I just feel like it's hard to communicate. So figuring out what's that mix of discipline. How much do you need? How much do you not need? What are the habits that you make that get in the way of writing? So you might say, man, I should really write. Just pay attention to what you do instead, right? For some people, it's just me, Twitter. It's the enemy. I will just go there and waste 40 minutes just scrolling. Or for some people, it might be picking up video game controller. We all have something that we do instead of the thing we should do, or instead of, in this case, creating, writing, making. We have something that we say, we use one of those excuses I went through before. Isn't there something more important I should do than writing this? I'm going to play Xbox. I have no judgment of people who play video games. I think it's fantastic. It's a great outlet. But you can't use that excuse and then use that mechanism as a way out. That is just using an excuse as a doorway to procrastinate. So a couple of things I've done to impose discipline on myself: create your own deadline. Give yourself a deadline if you don't have one. The reason I'm successful at my job is because I have deadlines. I know when I need to get things done, and then I create a pace, a cadence of when I'm going to work on those things. I have no writer's block at work. You can't. So when I'm told to create a presentation, when I'm told to create a plan, I know from the deadline, I work backwards, I create milestones, and I knock it out. With my own work, writing a book, writing an article, creating a YouTube video, I need to create a deadline for myself and hold myself accountable to that. And then you get to have fun with that. You get to break the rules because they don't really mean anything. So something I've done a lot of times is tell myself, not yet. I don't give myself permission to start writing. I will have an idea and I'll say, oh, I should go sit down and write that. No, not yet. Not ready yet. I might jot it down and do that until I have 2 or 3 balls that are at the top of the mountain, snowballs at the top of the mountain that I want to push down. So that when I finally say, okay, now I have momentum. I have things that I want to write, and I've kind of withheld from myself. It's like I do with my kids sometimes, reverse psychology. I say, no, you can't eat that broccoli until they are begging for broccoli, which they never beg for broccoli, and that won't work on them. But it works on me to withhold permission for me to write myself. The other thing as far as discipline is find rabbit holes, identify rabbit holes, and know when is the time to go into them and when is the time to ignore them. There's a time for you to do a deep dive if you're writing, to go do that rabbit hole research, find everything you want to find, see who else has already covered this, find out things that are tangential to it. Go watch a bunch of crazy YouTube videos of skateboarders that have nothing to do with it, that you just get into these rabbit holes. They're a good distraction, they're good stimulation for your mind, and there's a time and a place for them. So know when to go into one to create that stimulation, and call yourself out when you're just procrastinating and when you're just avoiding. Because before you know it, if you find a rabbit hole, you can find your way into writing, or it can become a detour towards one of our excuses that somebody else has already created something great. Is this good enough? Or is this important enough? Or why am I focusing on this when I should be focusing on that? Creating debate for yourself. So what I encourage everyone to do, if you want to write, if you have writer's block, your file that you need to saw your way out is already in your pocket. Just look at your routine, look at your discipline, and start planning your escape.